here at PAX East 2019, and I'm checking out this really interesting game called Zed. I'm chatting here with one of the folks who has a very special role on the game. Good sir, could you tell us your name and what you've worked on Zed?
My name is Chuck Carter, and I'm basically the designer and creator of Zed. And a lot of the art I have worked on for the last couple of years.
Very cool. So now for folks at home who don't know, what kind of game is Zed?
Now, Zed is a kind of a narrative adventure game is the best way to describe it. It's about a man who's dying and he has dementia, which is kind of depressing in and of itself, but he's also an artist and he wants to finish a children's book for a granddaughter who's yet unborn. So what you do as a game player is you have to go in and kind of help him reconnect his memories and help him finish this children's book.
Oh, that sounds like an incredible premise. Might I ask, what inspired this?
There was a friend of mine who was sort of a mentor back in the 70s who about 10 years ago, I found out that he was dying. And I decided to go visit him. I hadn't seen him for a while. And he had dementia. And he didn't recognize me at first, but after talking for a little while, we finally kind of connected. And I discovered he was very frustrated because he couldn't figure out how to do his artwork. And after we said goodbye, he died about 6 months later. And I just was always stuck with that story in my mind about this guy who wanted to finish something, but he just was unable to, and it seemed like a great premise for a game.
I see. So how long have you been working on Zed?
Zed has been worked on since 2016, roughly. We had a successful Kickstarter. It's gone through a couple of changes, and as we've slowly moved to more of a VR/PC version of it, it's taken a bit more of a VR direction. It's gotten simplified in some ways. It's not quite as expansive as it once was, but it works on VR much better.
Very nice. So now how long have you been working in the game industry?
Since my first game was a game called Myst back in 1992. 1991 I started at Cyan and I ended at 1994. And done about 26 games or so afterwards.
So you have quite the record of games, my man.
Yeah, I've done quite a few. A lot of Command & Conquer, Red Alerts, a lot of games since then.
What would you say is your favorite part of the development process?
For me, it's coming up with the ideas. I've always enjoyed doing, concepting out ideas, pulling out things from very simple, ordinary, events in people's lives, and doing the artwork. Artwork is probably my primary thing that I love the most.
Now, did you do a lot of artwork when you were in school?
When I was what?
In school, when you were younger,
In high school, yeah. I didn't go to college, but in high school we had a specialized art class that focused on learning how to draw, paint, and all the basic arts, art history. That's where my foundation was started at.
Now, you've been in the industry for a while. Are there any changes that have happened that particularly excite you?
Well, I guess the biggest change is over the last 5 years or so, real-time engines have become the norm, and the things that you can do in a game engine like Unreal, and we use Epic's Unreal for our engine for Zed, is that you can get an environment that's almost photoreal in real time. And the application of that in 2D games and in VR is just, amazing how far it's come in a very short period of time. So that's probably the biggest change I think I've seen in games, and the most exciting because it lets us build worlds in ways that we could never have imagined just 10 years ago.
Very cool. So now let's say that the folks at home want to find out more about Zed. Where can they go?
You can go to eagergames.com, and it's spelled E-A-G-R-E games.com, or do Cyan Ventures. Cyan was the maker of Myst, and they have a new component of their company called Cyan Ventures, and you can find it there. You can find us on Eager Games on Twitter and Eager Games on Facebook as well.
Very nice. Now I have to ask this of everybody. What is your favorite game of all time, go?
My favorite game of all time? Boy, that's a tough one. I'm probably going back to show my age, but there was this flight sim back in the 1990s that I used to play all the time, and it was Chuck Yeager's Flight Sim.
Nice.
And I don't know why I like that game, but it was a blast. And there was an early game called Spaceship Warlock back then that I really liked a lot. Yeah, look that one up, Spaceship Warlock. It was way ahead of its time.
What sort of game was that?
It was about space pirates, and you had to kind of help this scientist and his daughter escape these space pirates. And so you had to kind of go in and fight them. And it was one of the first real-time games that was ever done where you kind of clicked and went through a 3D environment. a lot like what Myst eventually became, was done a little bit earlier than what we did it as. But it was just a really fun kind of very, campy game is the best way to describe it. And I mean, I played a lot of games since then, but that was just, I mean, I look back at my early days, and those games were a lot of fun, yeah.
Very nice. Well, sir, it has been a pleasure chatting with you. I cannot wait to check out more of Zed. I hope you enjoy your PAX.